So finally, the most controversial player in the NHL has signed a contract with the Edmonton Oilers. So essentially, Evander Kane signed a deal for 750K, which sees him getting 625K in signing bonuses. So that comes out to a total of 2.1 million for the rest of the season, and he has a full no movement clause. So yeah, I mean it's a this could be a steal of a deal. That rhymed. For the Edmonton Oilers because Draisaitl and Connor McDavid have never had this type of caliber of winger playing on their line before. So this could be fantastic if he behaves. But I just wanted to say, guys, we're almost at 400 subscribers. Let's make it happen. If you like a lot of hockey content, we're very I would say consistent with the content. We try our best to cover everything, all the rumors, the news, and so on. So please subscribe to our channel. If you're interested, don't forget to check out our Instagram and our TikTok as well. There's going to be some controversial things there sometimes, some funny things too, some news related stuff. So make sure to check that stuff out. And let's get that 1K, and every time we hit a milestone, I'll be singing a song of your choice.
Oh
So
God.
Oh
so just
boy,
so exactly. So well,
let's
we're
hope that
looking
doesn't
forward to
happen.
that. So just a little bit more info before we get into today's topic. So according to Michael Trakos of Post Media, the Golden Knights, Oilers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Panthers, Hurricanes, and Tampa were all interested in Evander Kane. Jeff Merrick from Sportsnet also stated that the Flames had some interest.
I
The
heard
Washington Cap-
Washington.
I heard
yeah, the
Washington as
Washington
well.
Capitals were his second choice. They were in contact with him, but they never gave him a legitimate offer. I think the only team that gave him a legitimate offer was the Edmonton Oilers. Ken Holland and Dave Tippett met with Evander Kane in person and through Zoom many times before the signing, and they knew that the investigation was gonna be in Kane's favor as of like the beginning of this week, so they already knew. So I'm just gonna read a statement issued by the NHL. So the National Hockey League announced today that it has concluded its investigation into Evander Kane. The investigation concluded that there was inefficient evidence to conclusively find that Mr. Kane knowingly made misrepresentations regarding his COVID-19 status or test results in connection with his international travel. As a result, the league has determined not to pursue any additional consequences, essentially. So good on his part. He came out winning for once, and it's nice to see
After a
that
lot of losing, yeah.
he's going to be paired up with the likes of Zach Hyman, Puliarvi, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl,
Nugent
and
Hopkins.
Nugent Hawkins. So that's going to be fantastic to see. And
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into today's topic. Will
Uh,
Evander Kane have an impact on the Edmonton Oilers?
so as I mentioned this before, actually just before we started this episode, I think that this can be one of the biggest steals ever. And the reason why I think that is because Evander Kane's not a like forget about the off ice stuff for a second, okay? Look at Evander Kane, the player. He's really not a bad hockey player. In fact, he led the Sharks last year in points. He was their leading scorer. He was fantastic last season. He can play both ends of the ice. He's willing to do everything he possibly can to help the team win. And you're putting him on a line with Connor McDavid or with Leon Draisaitl, and you're putting him on a power play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah,
It to
very
me,
scary.
to me, you're looking at a guy who is an elite player, who's on a steal of a contract because he signed it there and his contract got terminated, and he's playing with arguably two of the top five best players in the world. I'm
Generational talent, in my opinion.
he's going to dominate. Like he's going to dominate, and I would not be surprised if the Oilers score like 5 goals a game. I wouldn't
Not
because
only that, but some
he's just
other
there.
guys are gonna be scared to hit Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. I think now because
But
they know
Yeah,
this
this guy
guy's
does
gonna
it
come
all,
after them.
essentially. He
but like
fights, he's physical,
yeah,
good movement with the puck. He's able to bring it from both ends of the ice.
He scores.
Great shooter, great passer. He's essentially a power forward. And I think, whatever claims Edmonton Oiler fans may say that, oh, Zach Cassian at one point was a power forward for the Edmonton Oilers a couple years ago. You could not compare Zach Cassian to Evander Kane. Evander Kane is not a generational talent. He's not a franchise talent, but he's an elite player.
Yes,
Um,
that's that he
the
is.
the only thing that kind of messes with his image is, the gambling, uh, issuing a
The,
statement that he filed for bankruptcy,
the
the
allegations.
domestic violence, sexual assault.
Yeah,
And
the allegations, whether they're true or not, I mean, it's not something you'd want on a team, to be
yeah,
honest.
I know a lot of people were frustrated at first, calling him names, even including us. We call them a word that we won't repeat, but essentially a lot of frustration on our part because those types of things in our society are things that you're not supposed to do. They're essentially taboo, and you're labeled a criminal or just a horrible person to do such things. And you're an NHL player. Not only that, he's a black NHL player, so a lot of black fans look up to him. So he needs to make sure um, that he has a good image for them.
Of course.
And he's done a lot of things for the community back in his days with Atlanta, Buffalo, and Winnipeg. There's records of that. There's footage of that. But with all this news coming out the last couple of years, that's all overshadowed essentially. So hopefully he could bounce back. I think this is essentially his last chance. Um, Kayla Gray of TSN from The Shift interviewed
Yes.
him. There's a two-part interview, part one and part two on TSN. You could check it out. Very interesting. Obviously he admitted to a couple of things, and he made a lot of things clear to a lot of viewers. It
But he
opened my
also
eyes
did.
essentially. I don't know about you guys, how you guys felt with the interview.
Well, I mean, uh, sorry.
Oh
I
no, you
mean,
could go ahead.
in my, I only watched part one. I didn't watch part two, but from what I saw in part one, there was a lot of questions that Kayla asked that were very interesting, right? Like she tried to get answers
She
out
did a
of him.
fantastic job, by the way. I just
Of
want to
course,
give her
she
credit.
did a great job. And honestly, what was interesting about that interview too is that Evander Kane answered some questions, but didn't answer all of them. And I'm not saying he had to go out there and explain everybody everything that was going on, but Evander Kane was very smart in how he answered those questions because he wanted to, clear his name, but also keep a positive image of himself. Because at the end of the day, you already have so much hate coming from the community in general because of these allegations and everything that at some point, like, he has to come out and clear his name. What I found very interesting about Evander Kane is that, I think personally there's two sides to every story. And I think that a lot of people were quick to judge him based on stories that they heard. Now,
Including
whether the
us.
stories are true or not true is another thing. But the point is that we haven't. Yes, we've heard Evander Kane do all these things. Yes, we've heard about Evander Kane being alleged, sexual assault or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, no facts or proof or evidence has ever come out to suggest that that's the case. So for us, it's about looking at it from a personal standpoint, but also from a hockey standpoint. We have to give the guy the benefit of the doubt. And that's kind of where I'm at right now with this whole thing with Evander Kane. Was I mad at the guy when I saw the allegations? Absolutely. Do I think that he made a lot of stupid mistakes? I still do, because I think there's a lot of things off ice that he could have done better. However, at the end of the day, it's also about figuring stuff out and making sure that everything we do is in the best interest of the hockey league as well. So for Evander Kane, great player. I think the stories that he told and whatever, at the end of the day, it's all about, giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I think if you're an Oilers fan, you don't really give a shit. And if you're the players, I don't think you give a shit either. And the reason why, you're getting an elite player who's going to help you win, who's going to score goals, and who's going to put you in a position to succeed. Do you think Connor McDavid cares about the fact that Evander Kane declared bankruptcy? Connor McDavid doesn't give a shit.
No.
Connor McDavid wants one thing and one thing only, and that's to win a Stanley Cup. That's it. And if
And
Evander Kane
yeah,
goes and wins them a Stanley Cup, Connor McDavid won't give a shit. Neither will Leon Draisaitl, neither will the Edmonton Oilers. So I think people that are getting mad or upset or annoyed by, Evander Kane shouldn't be back in the league. Well, in everything that they've done, they've investigated everything, and they've determined that, okay, it doesn't warrant him being suspended. So therefore, he's allowed to sign with a team. So the Oilers took advantage and signed an elite player at a cheap price, and they're probably going to get a really good return based on what they've done.
Now, here's what concerns me. It's not the allegation fact and whatever. It's just every single team that he has been on. This is what, fourth team now?
So
Yes.
San Jose, Winnipeg /
Buffalo.
Atlanta, and
And Buffalo,
Buffalo.
yeah, so 14.
So it's his fourth team, and every single team he's been with so far, except for Edmonton, there's always been some kind of story. Now, rather it's true or not, but there
Yeah.
must be something there,
Of
where
course.
So now the question is, and usually the first 2 years or the first year goes well. I mean, I watched an interview from 2 years ago, a while ago, saying that ever since he got into Winnipeg, he demanded a trade.
Well,
Uh,
I know
like
that he didn't like.
every
I
single
know
year
he,
he's been there, but
yeah,
and then so essentially, like, I mean, listen, this is his last chance. So I
yeah.
mean, he's like Chris said, he's gonna have to behave at some point, whether it's true or not. I mean, he's gonna have to be a good boy, and because like he can't do any stupidities, especially like and like he's got veterans in the locker room, and he's got like really talented players, and I feel like I don't know, I feel like they'll mesh well, and honestly, I think him and the general manager and the coach got along, I guess, well, from
Yeah,
the interview that I've watched, the press conference. So
yeah, they all interacted. They laughed at a couple of his jokes because Evander Kane is a personality, pretty funny guy. Very sarcastic, whatever. They asked him, "Why'd you sign on Edmonton?" And he's like, "Well, obviously because of the weather, and obviously the weather is not the greatest there." And Dave Tippett and Ken Holland chuckled a little bit, and even the media. So I think there's a good relationship there. Ken Holland and Dave Tippett said that they have spoken to coaches and ex-players that play with him, and they have an idea of what Kane brings to the team, character-wise and as a player on the ice. So
sorry,
essentially,
I want to butt
yeah,
in just a moment. The thing I was worried about is that apparently him and some relationships between him and players, he doesn't get along well.
yeah,
Rather
Dustin
that's
Byfuglien, a couple players on San
that's
Jose.
true or not. What I'm worried about now is you've seen how Leon Draisaitl's been acting with the media right now, and he's really pissed off. And I guess because they're losing, everybody's kind of angry.
Well, they won 3
Let's
games. They've won 3 games since then, but yeah.
I know, but let's just say they go back on a losing streak. This guy's there, and I don't know, something might happen. Do you think, I don't know, maybe one of these guys is like, you know what, I'm fed up of playing here. Like even with this guy being here, and like it just made it worse, and they call
Not
it.
not really. It's really up to like Kane at the end of the day. If he initiates something, then yeah, of course, But Leon Draisaitl is not gonna have a bad game and just look at
Well, I'm
Kane
not
and be
saying one
like,
bad game.
"You
I'm
know what?
saying
I'm gonna
like
kick
maybe
your ass." Like he's not
something
gonna do that.
happens. I don't know. Like, well, not kick his ass, but I'm just saying.
Well,
He's
I
not
don't know.
gonna
Maybe
yell at him or
like
blame
will
him.
there
It's
be
a team
I
effort at
conflict?
the end of the
That's what
day.
I'm
I think
questioning.
look, here's how I say, and I kind of agree with Chris's point to some extent, because think about it this way: the Oilers bring in Evander Kane to do one thing and one thing only. That's to make the playoffs. Now, if the Oilers lose and Evander Kane's also not behaving himself, then yes, Draisaitl and McDavid may turn around and say this guy came in and fucking became a cancer in our locker room. I personally don't think Evander Kane's going to do
I
that, and
point
the
the
reason
finger at
why I
him
don't
if
think
it's the whole team that hasn't even been
yeah,
playing consistently even
but
before they got
but
Evander
even
Kane.
but the point that I'm trying to make is that because of you have to also understand that he's not coming in at the beginning of the season. He's coming in midway through the season. And so he already doesn't have chemistry with anybody because he hasn't played with anybody. So if the Oilers come in, right, and they start playing and they start losing games consistently, and then Evander Kane continues to be a cancer in the locker room or becomes a cancer in the locker room in Edmonton, Edmonton may turn around and say, well, the reason we started losing or the reason this happened is because Evander Kane came in and kind of ruined our locker room a little bit. Now, look, again,
I don't agree with
I've
that at
heard
all.
I've heard good things about him in the locker room. I've heard bad things about him in the locker
He
room.
has a good relationship with Joe Thornton, and Joe
I don't
Thornton is
know
a
if he's
respectable guy in the
yeah,
league. He's a
but I
future
don't know
Hall
if
of
he's a bad guy.
Famer. He reached out to him when his contract got bought out by San Jose, and they had a 20-minute conversation on the phone. you know. So I think it's either you like him or you hate him, and it really depends, like if you like that type of character that he brings to the locker room and on the ice, essentially, um look, I don't agree to your points to the full extent, and here's why. Because unless it's him individually that does something, yes, he'll be the
That's what
target.
I'm saying.
But
That's what I'm
why
saying.
blame someone for the team's failures just because he's like the guy that came in like last minute? Like he's
Because
there essentially to save them, to help them.
because it's not a
And they
question of
stated that. And even the Edmonton Oilers fans do not care who he is as a person. And I mean, to a certain extent, yes, but like now, like let's turn the page. This guy's on our team. We have to accept it, and that's it. Evander Kane is a fantastic player that Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid have been dying for the longest time, and now he closes up the gap and seals his position in a top six role. And you look at the top six now. You have McDavid, Hyman, Ryan Nugent Hawkins. You have Puliarvi, no, sorry, Kane, Hyman, and Draisaitl, and Puliarvi is able to go down on the third line and also get a play up on the top 6 minutes as well if there's an injury or they want to shuffle the lines a little bit. So essentially, they needed three things. They need a top defenseman, a defensive defenseman, which they haven't acquired yet. They need a number one starting goaltender that's young and not on a bad contract, and they need they needed a top six forwards to, complete their top six. They got one out of the three, and they got him at a discount. And I personally think he will do well with the Edmonton Oilers because you're getting power play time. You're playing with fantastic players, elite players, and then you have two generational talent players there too. Like, come on, man! Like this guy, it's his essentially, it's his game to lose. I don't know if that's the right expression, but like you know what I mean. Essentially, like he's in a position where he's there to succeed. Everything is going in his favor. I don't
yeah.
really see any cons
I'm gonna,
except for his character.
I'm gonna ask a hypothetical question here. Well, I mean, it could happen. Let's say from now that they got him, so he's playing his first game tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes against the
Yeah,
Habs.
against the
Saturday night
Habs.
against the Montreal Canadiens.
Let's say from tomorrow up until the trade deadline, the Edmonton Oilers are nowhere near a playoff spot. They have no chance of making it. Let's just say that happens. Okay.
Okay.
Do you potentially see him getting flipped at the deadline?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah,
Um, at the
it's
end of the
possible.
Oilers
Or
signed.
would they re-sign him for next year?
Uh,
It really depends on the chemistry and how well he does, but like knowing that he's on a cheap and affordable contract, and there's a lot of teams that were interested in prior to his signing with the Edmonton Oilers. So you have Washington that could take a look at him, Tampa, the Flames, the Panthers, the Hurricanes. So essentially, like there's obviously a market for Evander Kane,
I,
but
I,
the deal is already signed, and
I
I think
mean,
someone would love to add him at the deadline if he
I
doesn't do
mean,
well.
I mean, let's be honest with
I
each
mean,
other here.
if he doesn't do well.
If the Oilers are out of a playoff spot come the trade deadline, and you're in a position where you have to make a trade because whatever, and you have a guy there that, to be honest, if pretty much any team that can afford Evander Kane would take him, even if he whatever, because at the end of the day he's still Evander Kane and he's still playing well. It all depends on how well he plays, but at the same time, like Chris said, his contract's cheap. So a team like Tampa, a team like the Rangers, a team like Washington, a team like Florida, those teams who have cap space and are battling for a playoff spot and are contending may look at that and say, "Oh well, if the Oilers are out of the playoffs, maybe we'll make a trade for Evander Kane." But I don't know because I don't know what Edmonton's plan is with him. Are they bringing him in to help them make the playoffs, or are they bringing him in for this long-term project that they're going
I
to
think
end
it's
up
both,
signing
to
him
be honest. I
and
think
sign him
it's to rejuvenate his
long-term?
career, and also to push for a playoff spot. I know they have a couple games in hand compared to the other teams because of COVID and so on.
But
So,
they're not far out. They're not far out of the playoffs.
yeah, they're
They've
not
now
far out, but if they
they've won three
really,
straight
really want to
now.
make a playoff push, they need to address their issues essentially. Now you
Yeah.
need a defensive defenseman because you already have Barry and Nurse that are and Bouchard. You're just missing one more guy on that top four, and you're missing a starting goaltender.
Yeah.
Having a guy like Mike Smith back up a starting goaltender is not a bad duo to have. You know, maybe even Koskinen as a backup to limit his playing time too. The amount of games he plays. This guy's been burnt for the last like couple of seasons. He's not a number one goalie. He's at most a fringe backup goalie. And his contract is horrible. Shirelli made a huge mistake, and now it's Ken Holland's problem. And people want to crap on Ken Holland and stuff, but like, there's a lot of problems when he came in. And this guy is a three-time Stanley Cup champion. He was with the Detroit Red Wings for like 20 to 25 years. He knows what it takes to win, essentially. I don't think he's being cheap or, like we've labeled him a couple of
Yeah.
times, or, he's being lazy and he just doesn't want to adjust anything. I think it's because they're just stuck. I think the players that they're trying to unload, they're not wanted by other teams because their contracts are horrible and the players are horrible, essentially. And they're just gonna have to either wait out until their contracts expire, or maybe wait until they have 1 year left and buy them out. There's a couple of buyout candidates on the team, but like again, Draisaitl and McDavid are, not going to be there forever. And if they don't win a Stanley Cup with the Edmonton Oilers, they're going to win a Stanley Cup with another team. And I don't think
I
Edmonton Oilers fans want to see them leave the way that Gretzky left or
no.
Mark Messier.
At
So,
I
least Gretzky won cups, though.
yeah,
I think
exactly.
Evander Kane. I think Evander Kane is going to come into Edmonton, and he's going to make. I look again. Evander Kane doesn't play goaltender and doesn't play defense. So, in terms of that, I mean, that's the Edmonton's going to have to make another move if they want to improve that. But I'm saying, as an offensive guy, we talk about Edmonton's depth and not being the best, and talk about secondary scoring. Well, they've got a guy now who can put the puck in the net as well, who's really good at it. And the other thing is too with Evander Kane, he brings a little bit of sandpaper as well. He's a guy who can fight. He's a guy who's going to hit. He'll take penalties. He'll block shots. He'll play on the penalty kill. He can play everywhere. And so that's what's great about Evander Kane. And I think that's what he's going to bring to Edmonton. And again, putting him next to Connor McDavid is going to be lethal. Putting him next to Leon Draisaitl is going to be lethal. And
Apparently, he's
putting him
playing.
on power play
Apparently,
is
he's
going to be lethal.
playing. That's the top line. Is apparently Draisaitl, McDavid, Kane. From what I
Well,
heard.
I read that.
That definitely is going to be the power play line,
I
but I
think
don't
that's
think
gonna
it's
be
going
the
to be
power
the
play.
first line. They
But I
need to
mean, even
balance
if it
it
is,
out.
bro, Montreal's defense isn't great. So I could see Evander Kane scoring a hat trick in his first game with Edmonton.
Look,
Honestly, I'm not even kidding. I would not be surprised if Evander Kane scores a hat on that Montreal defense. Gary, I wouldn't be surprised
and with the
at all.
current goaltenders that they have, I think he's gonna have a fantastic first game. Whether he has one goal or
What a
two
team to
goals or
play
three
against
goals
too,
or
huh? Montreal
4
out of all teams.
points, yeah, goals, 2 assists, whatever. I think he's gonna have a good game. Regardless of the how many points he has on the score sheet, and I think he's gonna have a positive impact offensively for the Edmonton Oilers. But
Yeah.
again, Ken Holland needs to get a defensive defenseman to close up his top four and get a starting goaltender, because
I,
this team
I
is
think
not
the
going to go
goalie
for a
is the
deep
biggest
playoff
issue
run
right
if they
now.
clinch a playoff spot. And I see Edmonton clinching like a wild card spot at best. And even if they make the playoffs, I see a first round exit if they do not get those two pieces. And getting Kane, like I said before, it solidifies their top six, moves Puliarvi down to the third line, meaning now that their depth got stronger in a sense too. Hopefully, Yamamoto steps it up.
Yeah.
The depth hasn't been great for Edmonton. We've seen it for the last couple of years that at times it's the McDavid and Draisaitl show, and they need to address that because
Uh,
Why would Puliarvi go to the third line?
well,
look at the
because
top six now: Zach Hyman, McDavid, Kane, for example.
Yeah, Nugent
Nuge,
Hopkins,
Draisaitl,
Draisaitl.
Kane.
No, you said Kane twice.
Ah,
Yeah,
Hyman, Hyman.
he would still be on the top two
Well,
line.
there's Zach Hyman too, but I don't know how they're going to do it because I think Nuge
Well,
plays.
what I would see is Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, and Puliarvi, and I would or Draisaitl, and then I'd see McDavid, Kane, and or I'm confused now.
yeah, me too. I'm confused. Anyways, Kane is gonna have a top six role. Puliarvi, whether he's in the top six or he's playing third line minutes, whatever.
Look,
Essentially, offensively,
I
they
have the
got
lines
better.
here.
That's what we're trying to say.
I have the
Defensively,
lines
they
right
have
here.
things to address, and in goaltending, they have to address.
So I have the lines right here. According to Daily Faceoff, which is what I where I usually go to get my lines, whatever. Evander Kane's on the top line with Connor McDavid and Kayla Yamamoto. Second line would be Warren Fogle, Leon Draisaitl, Jesse Puljujarvi, and then third line is Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Cassian.
Well,
And if you
Really?
definitely,
go,
they need to update their lines because those are
yeah,
horrible lines.
and if you go on the top, and apparently Evander Kane's on the second power play unit.
Yeah, I
But
wouldn't
I,
trust
I
that
have a
site,
feeling
man.
I have a
Something's
feeling him
sketchy
and
with that site.
Puljujarvi. I have a feeling Evander Kane and Puljujarvi are going to swap places
Yeah,
on
I
the
don't
power
trust
play.
that lineup at all.
I
I
mean,
don't
it
trust
could
that at
be. I
all.
mean,
Well,
I
maybe
don't
it's a
know. We haven't.
projected lineup. Who
Maybe it's
knows?
Yeah,
projected, but
it's a projected
essentially,
lineup.
so guys, we could all confirm that we all think the same thing, which is
Yes,
Evander Kane will have an impact on the
Yeah,
yes,
Edmonton
he's
Oilers.
gonna do good. I mean,
of
it's a
course,
no brainer.
A positive
of course.
impact or a negative impact?
I hope it's a positive.
I'm pretty sure it's positive. Skill wise, positive. The other stuff, time will tell.
Okay, perfect. Well,
Yeah,
that closes
I
up our
agree.
episode today. We just want to say thank you so much, guys, for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. And Edmonton fans, we want to hear your thoughts essentially on this signing. Are you happy with Evander Kane, the player? Are you happy with Evander Kane, the person? Or you don't even care at this point? You're just glad that you got a top six elite forward to play alongside either Draisaitl or McDavid offensively. Your team looks, I would say, complete, but now it's time to address the defensive issues and goaltending issues. So I just wanted to say thank you so much, guys. Once again, sorry, I don't know what that comment was doing there. It was a weird comment, but don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe. Help us to get to 400 subscribers, and let's try to continue on our righteous path of hitting 1K. Until the next episode.